Have you ever met someone who just seemed to have this unfair advantage in dating? They might not be the richest or the best-looking person in the room, but they effortlessly draw people in and hold all the power. It's almost like they know some secret code, right? Well, that secret code exists. It's buried in history, studied by manipulators, and perfectly laid out in one controversial book, The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, the same guy who wrote the 48 Laws of Power. Today, we're not talking about cheesy pickup lines or dating tips. We re-pulling back the curtain on the 3 most toxic psychological methods of seduction, the dark strategies that give people an almost hypnotic power over others. Stick around. Not to use these methods, but to recognize them so you never end up being the target. But hey, before we dive into these dangerous waters, if you're interested in uncovering more hidden truths about human nature and power, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't miss out on the secrets they don't want you to know. The first rule of toxic seduction is the most counterintuitive. Create temptation. Here is the core idea. You have to convince your target that being with you is a challenge. The harder the challenge, the more obsessed they become. You show interest, you get their desire stimulated, and then you build a wall. You become the forbidden fruit. Let me give you the legendary story of Don Juan, a man whose list of conquests was insane. One of his former victims was a poor girl named Cressida. Years after he dumped her, Don Juan sees her in a park. She's now elegant, rich, and walking with a child. Don Juan, the master seducer, is suddenly consumed by curiosity and a burning desire. He tries to approach her, but Cressida gives him the ultimate brush-off. "I'm married," she tells him. "Talking to you is forbidden." That rejection crushed him. The man who usually held all the cards was now utterly powerless. But here's the twist. Cressida's entire new life, the rich husband, the elegance, it was all a massive prank. She knew Don Juan's nature. She knew the only thing that would reel him back in was to make him feel like he couldn't have her. She manufactured the challenge. Even after Don Juan found out the truth, he was so consumed by the obsession she had engineered that he still asked her to marry him. The takeaway? People are perversely excited about what they should not or cannot have. You must be flirtatious to ignite the desire, but then you must introduce a barrier, whether it's social status, an existing relationship, or a time constraint to make the prize feel worth fighting for. This second method is perhaps the most ruthless. Isolate the victim. It doesn't target desire. It targets their security and dependence. Think about your life, your friends, your family, your routines. That's your safety net. This toxic strategy is about pulling that rug out from under them, leaving them vulnerable and dependent only on you. The perfect example comes from ancient China, after King Guzhan was defeated and humiliated by King Fushai. Guzhan knew a direct fight wouldn't work, so he devised a seduction plot instead. He trained a beautiful girl named Shishir for 3 years, teaching her every art of seduction, dance, and manipulation. Shishir was sent to Fuchai. The king immediately became obsessed. Shishir began to whisper to Fuchai, convincing him that he was smarter than all his ministers. She prompted him to ignore outside advice. Slowly, Shishir made her demands. She cried when he spent time away. To keep her happy, King Fushai started missing council meetings, neglecting his friends, his family, and his public duties. He became completely isolated from every source of his power and judgment. What happened? Fuchai spent all his treasury wealth on her. When he finally returned to his capital, he found King Guzhan, the man who sent the gift waiting with his army. Fuchai's mind was so completely taken over that he ended up taking his own life. The lesson here is chilling. In seduction, as in warfare, the isolated target is weak. If you get into a relationship and you start cutting off your friends, abandoning your hobbies, or ignoring your family, you are giving all your power to that one person. You become dependent, and psychologically, you are now crying out for help, like a child lost in the dark. The third law taps into our deepest herd mentality: appear to be an object of desire. This method is amazing because it makes physical looks or charisma almost irrelevant. You just need one thing: social proof. The principle is simple. People want what other people want. Think about a restaurant that's packed versus one that's empty. Which one do you want to eat at? This played out perfectly with Lou von Salome, a brilliant Russian philosopher. She was friends with Paul Rée, who was obsessed with her. She asked Rée to introduce her to his famous friend, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Rée, against his better judgment, agreed. Soon, he found himself caught in a love triangle. Nietzsche and Salome were engrossed in deep conversation, leaving Rée on the outside. This competition made Rée even more desperate for her attention. Salome was constantly surrounded by men competing for her, including Sigmund Freud later in her life. People wanted to be with her because she was the woman Nietzsche wanted. Her reputation as the genius magnet made her universally attractive. Today, we see this with celebrities. They have massive social proof, millions of admirers publicly expressing their desire. That collective energy creates a powerful magnet. Even having a high number of followers on social media serves as proof that you are desirable, making you instantly more attractive to others. These three methods, temptation, isolation, and social proof, are not about love. They are about power and manipulation. They exploit the psychological weaknesses in others. Now you know the blueprints. Use this knowledge as your shield. Recognize when someone is trying to isolate you from your friends, or when you're chasing someone purely because they're replaying the forbidden fruit game. Stay aware, stay connected, and you'll never fall victim to these toxic games of power.